to go live on StreamYard and then I hit it.
Where's your point?
Okay.
Hey, we're live on Instagram. All right.
Boom. Let's get this rolling. Yeah, I got my widget.
Okay. I don't. You'll go first, and then maybe I won't even go. All right. Kyle, one of the really cool things about being in real estate is the ability to make a lot of money. And in real estate, it's not a typical job or typical career where you're working for a large corporation where they take a lot of taxes and that sort of stuff out. So I think what we see in real estate, we see a lot of people run into issues of not managing the money they make, and two, having to kind of fight this. I made a lot of money, I made no money. I made a lot of money, I made no money. Today, I want to talk about how do you help agents manage commissions and their cash flow to have a sustainable business that's not terrifying and fear-inducing. I'm getting nervous about it just thinking about it.
Yeah, no, this will be a good topic because I feel like most brokerages, teams don't ever talk about this stuff. And Lord knows the test they give you at the state doesn't teach you how to run a business either. So I think it's one of the things, I know it's a big focus for me this year with our team to go a lot deeper into this stuff, just because I realize how little education there is out there about this stuff. It's not sexy to talk about a P&L statement or a budget. It's way sexier to talk about a new lead source. I mean, hell, we were just talking about one right before this, a new lead source or a new tech tool or a new video strategy. Like that stuff's sexy and everybody wants to talk about it, but nobody wants to talk about how to actually run a business and especially the financial side of it. So it's going to be what we're going to hit on today.
So if you like this, make sure you share it with someone, because this is, without money, you don't have a business.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't have a P&L, I would question whether or not you have a real business or not. So just something to think about. Cool. Well, welcome to the Whistle Way podcast. My name is Kyle Whistle, your host with Whistle Realty Group and eXp Realty in San Diego.
I'm Bryan Coachy with Whistle Realty Group.
The goal of the show is give you the tools, techniques, and tactics. Go out there and crush it in your business. The way that we like to do that is to answer the questions that you have for us. So if you ever have a question, you want to have us answer it on the show, go to thewhistleway.com, thewhistleway.com. You can ask us questions on there, subscribe to the podcast and YouTube channel, join our referral network for everybody leaving California. Also get on our private Facebook group and email newsletter list where we share a lot of tips and tricks of stuff we are working on inside our team. All right, let's go. Can you move that down?
What down?
I just can't see it. There you go.
You can see that?
Yep.
Good. Okay, so what do you want to do with start first? Putting money aside or managing your business so it's not up and down?
I mean, managing the business up and down, I feel like is the easier one, where a lot of agents probably don't feel like that, but that's because they're guilty of not consistently prospecting. What we see in use some hand gestures for those of you guys that are just listening as opposed to watching. You can't always watch these on our YouTube channel, The Whistle Way. But what I find is think about like a teeter-totter. And when you push one side down on a teeter-totter, the other side goes up and vice versa. You watch agents do this all the time when it comes to their deal flow and their prospecting. Like those are the two sides of this thing. So a lot of agents get in the business, they have no deal flow. So that's sitting down low. So they prospect a lot up high. But then what happens is they start to get more deal flow. The deal flow starts to lift and then the prospecting falls. And then all of a sudden the deals close and it teeter-totters, and this thing just goes back and forth with prospecting and deal flow, prospecting, deal flow, to where when you have that teeter-totter effect, you have a income that looks like a friggin' roller coaster. It's up, it's down, it's up, it's down. You have months where you make 5 figures, you have months where you lose money, and then you make 5 figures and then you lose money. You're all over the friggin' place. To stabilize your income, to actually make that more consistent, you just got to be freaking consistent. You just have to prospect consistently. My strong recommendation is that you prospect for new business, people you've never spoken with, a minimum of an hour a day, and you do lead follow-up with people that you have spoken with and or have contact info for in your CRM, a minimum of an hour a day. So it's effectively 2 hours a day of follow-up with existing clients and generation of new clients. So 2 hours total, 1 hour on prospecting, 1 hour on follow-up. And if agents just did that every single day, it's really not that hard. We actually built a calculator out. If you guys want a copy of it, DM me on Instagram and ask for the spreadsheet with a calculator on how much you need to prospect. Like, it's so simple. I think when you boil it down, if you want to make $250,000 a year, and your average commission is $10,000, all you got to do is make like 40 dials a day.
I want to say someone literally just
Yeah,
sent you a DM about this exact same
There you
thing.
go. I think it boils down. It's like 40 dials a day.
Uh-huh.
If you could just make 40 dials a day, 5 days a week for the entire year, $250,000 based on like standard conversion rates and everything like that.
Based on an average price point of,
I'm running that at a 10,000 average commission.
Okay.
So obviously that's going to vary
Yes.
from market to market, price point, percentage, all that. I mean, I met with somebody that recently they moved to Alabama and their average commission rate down there is substantially lower than it is here. So there's just so much variation. But just assuming like a 10,000 average, obviously if your commission's lower or whatever. So if you want that spreadsheet, just DM me on Instagram at Kyle Whistle. I'll send it to you. But it's very simple. You just have to be consistent, prospect an hour a day, follow up an hour a day. And if you can do that every day, 5 days a week, every week, you're going to be really successful, and you will have way more consistent in your income. You will not have that roller coaster. If anything, you'll actually have this income that is going to increase over time because there is a compound effect to that prospecting. So it's something that's going to start slow in the beginning, but as you start to feed that funnel more and more and more, it's going to compound and that income should grow over time.
And when do you recommend to set these 2-hour blocks in your calendar?
My saying that always stuck with me from when I got in this business early on is that the phone gets heavier as the day goes on. So longer you wait to make your phone calls, the less likely you are to make them. It's the same thing to me as the gym. I can't go work out at 6 o'clock every night at the end of the day. There's so many days by the time 6 o'clock rolls around, I am so fried. I'm exhausted. All I want to do is just lay down, or some days I want to go have a beer or whatever the case may be, but I am not in the mood at 6 o'clock more often than not. So I just shifted and now I just work out at 5 a.m. every day. But guess what? By doing it at 5 a.m., there's nothing that gets in the way. All I got to do is just make it from my bed to my workout room. And as long as I can accomplish that, there's not really much else that's going to get in my way of accomplishing my workout. So just get it done early. So I recommend, 8 to 10 or 9 to 11. Those would be your ideal times. Now, I do like to at least mix in 1 day a week where I have an afternoon block as well. There's just going to be some people you can't reach in that block in the morning time. So I like to mix in an afternoon block and, if possible, like a Saturday morning block before showings, before open houses. So I like to mix that stuff up. But ideally, you're doing it in the mornings. An afternoon block's great, and a Saturday block is even more great.
Cool. So that was the easy part.
Yeah.
Now what's the hard
just
part?
work consistently. Like it's really not that hard. So then the next part is you got to have a P&L. If you're not familiar with the P&L, it's a profit and loss statement. Just how much money do you have coming in? How much money do you have going out to figure out if you actually made money or not? Now, I'll be very honest. Like, I'm as guilty as anybody. My first few years in the industry, I never knew how much money I made the prior year. It's funny, we're recording this. It's April 15th today, tax day. This was usually about the day then I figured out how much money I made the prior year. Now, I was one of those that got ahead of things. So it was usually like April 14th that I learned how much money I made the prior year. So I'd have
my taxes.
So I'd have a whole day to figure out what to do. Did you know you didn't actually have to file yet?
Someone
you get money
that?
back. Your W-2, it's
No,
different.
I actually paid.
You got to pay?
Yeah,
okay. You didn't actually have to pay this year. Because we had rain in California, they gave us like a 2-month extension. So you actually had till June 17th. But
someone told me that. I'm like, don't even tell me. I just want to get done. Let me get it done.
So yeah, I mean, I was the guy like April 14th, my CPA would be like, oh, here's how much you made gross. And then here's your write-offs and here's how much money you have to pay. That was terrible. And then I would scramble like, how the hell am I going to come up with all this money? So that's not the way to go. And usually I'd either not have the money or I'd pay what I had and then I'd have late fees because I'd have to scrounge to, get the rest of that money. So that's not a healthy way to live because now your back's against the wall. You end up coming across with commission breath because you're desperate. And that's not a place you want to be in any negotiation is be desperate. If you're desperate in negotiation, you're going to lose 99% of the time. So you want to come across from a position of strength and power. And if you've paid all your taxes and you're not stressed about it, then you're not stressed out and you can be in that powerful position. But if you're stressed out because you got this looming tax bill, it's really hard to be at your best in that state. So we have to have a profit and loss. Most important thing, you've got to have a profit and loss. This is just, again, very simple. How much money do you have coming in? How much money do you have going out? There's templates online. I believe mint.com, if you're looking for a solution online, you can sync it up with all your bank accounts. It's one of the better solutions out there. I used to use it before I had a invest in bookkeeping and all that. So mint.com, if you're looking for like a DIY type solution. If you're looking for a done for you solution, Andy Mulholland used to, I don't know if he's still with or is with KW, but he built a company to help agents build P&Ls for their business called Simple Numbers. So we actually, one of our Fast Forward members did a webinar with Andy. If you want a copy of that webinar, just DM me at Kyle Whistle. I'll send you the webinar with Simple Numbers. And it's a few $100 a month, but they can do a profit and loss statement for you. Whether you're a solo agent or a team, they can build out a profit and loss statement for you. But guys, you have to know what the hell's going on in your business. Bryan has heard the story a bunch of times, but I remember being at a conference one time and there was this gal on stage and she was like gloating that she had made $250,000 the prior year from one of the online lead sources. And she was so proud of it. And she's on stage bragging. And then I pulled her aside after and I was like, wow, that's amazing. What are you spending per month? 20,000. And I was like, oh shit. Okay. She doesn't know, because 20,000 times 12 is 240,000. She made 250. I was like, and then I was like, just to clarify, is that 250 gross or net after the expenses? No, that's gross. You dumbass. You made $10,000 gross, but you realistically lost money because of all the time and everything that was involved. She was clueless. She didn't actually realize she was losing money on something that she thought that she was on stage bragging about, right? Like there's so many people in our industry that are guilty of the same thing because they have no clue. They're just, we're realtors. We're so focused on like, how big are my checks, that we're not necessarily paying attention to like, how much money did we spend to get that check? And so you have to know how much money are you spending to make what you're making. And then you also need to track and measure, like, what are you spending money on and what's the return look like on that? So there used to be a radio station here in San Diego when they would play new music. And then back in the day, used to call in. So people would call in and the station called this segment Pump It or Dump It. And so they would play this new track and then people would call in and say, pump it if they like the segment or dump it if they didn't, or the song, I'm sorry, pump it or dump it. And I just took that same strategy with my P&L, where I would sit down initially I would just do this annually. Now we literally do this monthly. So I went from annual reviews to quarterly reviews to monthly reviews. And you have to look at all the money you're spending and figure out, here's the expense for this particular thing. What's the income look like? And figure out, does it make sense to pump this or dump this? There's way too many people like that gal. She should have dumped that. That was not making her money. It effectively was losing her money. So that didn't make a whole lot of sense. She probably should have looked at dumping that. Whereas if she was spending 240, but making 250 net on top of that, literally doubling her money, that's probably something you're going to pump, right? Until you get to a point where the returns start to, decrease. So we have to be looking at that P&L and figure out, are we making money or not off of these things? So we have to do that. We also need to do with the P&L, we need to understand how much money are we making so we can start setting money aside for taxes. And I think, again, I was never setting money aside. I would just get my tax bill and hopefully I had enough money to pay it, but I was never prepared for it. I didn't know if it was going to be $100, $100,000. I had no clue. So that's not healthy. That's not a good place to live. So what I recommend to be safe and conservative is to set about 20% of your commission aside. So however many dollars come to you, set 20% aside, put that into some sort of high yield savings account. Right now, with the way rates are, you can get 4 or 5% on a high yield savings account. So when I say that, that's putting the money into an account that you could go grab tomorrow if you really needed it, but at least you're putting it into something that's growing. And now when tax season rolls around, you're set, you're ready to go and pay your taxes and just keep doing business as usual. So I found most people 20% is a safe number. Now I'm extremely aggressive from a tax perspective. I'm finding out all the different ways to do things like cost segregation and depreciation on rental properties and 401ks and defined benefit plans. And there's a lot of tax planning things that can be used to mitigate the amount of taxes. But we couldn't put strategies in place like that unless we knew how much money I'm making. So I have a financial advisor. We have calls every 2 weeks and we're constantly going through, hey, where's the income at year to date? What are we projecting by the end of the year? Because there's certain tax programs, there's certain things you can do to mitigate taxes that you can't do on April 14th the following year. You got to do them now. Some of these things take weeks or months to set up. So I'm having calls with my financial advisor every 2 weeks. And that's something we're looking at on a constant basis, is where do we project the income to be by the end of the year so that we can put the right tax mitigation strategies in play to get that income as low as possible, or as low as we want it to be, because we're a little different. I actually want to claim some income because I actually want to be able to go get loans. So I'm not somebody who goes down to zero on my income. I actually do claim a decent income, but that allows me to go and get any type of loan that I want, because when they ask for my W-2 or my W-2s, my tax returns, I can show a decent amount of income. Not a ton, nowhere near what the actual income is, but we get it down to the specific number we want. In fact, we are carrying losses over to next year because we got to the number we wanted. We had more than enough write-offs. So we look at it as though there's all these different levers that we can pull on to mitigate taxes. We just need to know which levers to pull, but we don't know which levers to pull if we don't know how much money we're making. And that's where the profit and loss statement is so valuable.
Couple things before we wrap up. One, you say 20%. When I went, and you've been doing this, you're a lot more risk averse, or I'm a lot more risk averse than you are. When I went to school to get my business degree, they said do a third to savings, a third to taxes, and a third for your checking or whatever. So that's another way to break it down.
Yeah, I think because we're in real estate, there's a lot of tax advantages that are available to us in real estate. We're self-employed, right? Independent contractors. There's a lot more that we are able to write off versus, somebody who's in a different type of industry. So because of the industry we're in cars all the time. We're writing off, like, you should be itemizing your mileage or, doing section 1. Like, there's so much we can do in this field where 20% I feel like is very safe.
Cool. I'm not even going to go to the other one because I think that's a whole new rabbit hole. Just give me the 30-second answer. Going back to the Zillow perspective, or the
online leads,
Zillow, Redfin Homes, whatever you want to call it. There was, if you're breaking even or you're making 10 grand more, you said that's no good. What is the rule of thumb ROI that you want to look at to decide where does it trigger from pump it to dump it? You're saying 1-to-1, we can make arguments the other way around, but 1-to-1, you say dump it. 2-to-1, you say pump it.
Yeah, I would say it depends. It depends if I'm a solo agent or a team leader. Okay. So there's stuff, obviously, our P&L within the company. There's certain things we do that are about a break even for us, but we do that because those sources have good quality leads that convert at a high percentage, which is very attractive for our agents. So we're willing to take a little bit of a little to no return on a particular team generated lead source, but that helps us attract good agents onto the team. So we understand that where we might not make a lot of profit off of that particular lead source, that lead source attracts good agents onto the team. And there's other lead sources where we are going to make profit. But this is all a formula that we figured out. So we understand that. So that's why I'm saying there's not like a rule of thumb like you're looking for.
Yeah.
The answer is it depends. But traditionally, you're looking to get a 2-to-1 return. So if I'm spending $240,000 a year into something, I want to see $480,000 come back. Otherwise, it probably doesn't make sense. Now, again, if you're a large team and you're using it and it's part of an overall strategy, maybe it's a little different. But 2-to-1 would be kind of a minimum of what I'd look for. Ideally, 3 or to 5-to-1 type of thing. So like if I'm spending $100,000 a year on postcards to farm a neighborhood, it's just my overall farming strategy. If I'm a solo agent, like 2-to-1, I don't know if that's good enough as a solo. Like I'm probably looking for 3-to-1 or more if I was a solo agent. So solo agent versus team, there's going to be some big variance there. But 2-to-1 would kind of be like my minimum for majority of people.
Cool. All right, let's get into our widget.
Awesome. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you did, if you are listening on a podcast platform, make sure to subscribe to the podcast. And if you can hook us up with a little review, maybe just share one little takeaway you got from this episode or one of the previous episodes. Those podcast reviews are super valuable to us and they mean a lot to us. So it's greatly appreciated. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit the thumbs up button. Let YouTube know you enjoyed the show. If you want more of our content, hit the subscribe button and the little notification bell. YouTube will notify you every time we release a new episode. And before we wrap up the show today, one of the things we like to do is share what we call the Whistle Widget of the Week. This is something we utilize in our business. It saves us time, makes us more money, or just helps us have more fun. What do you got for us, Bryan?
I'm gonna let you go first.
Okay. So I've recently embarked on a fitness journey with John Cheplack and his son, Alec.
Recently, you mean today?
No, I started on Thursday. So I'm learning a lot about nutrition that I probably wish I would have learned earlier. So I'm tracking all my macros. I'm tracking things, obviously how many calories I'm taking in per day to align with my weight loss goal. Also, how many grams of carbs and fat and protein, most importantly. And it's been really interesting, really eye-opening to look into the numbers to understand like what moves the needle, which is actually a really good tie into what we just talked about with the P&L. Like if you don't actually pull back the curtain and look and see what's back there, you don't know what's happening. And so this has been a really good thing for me to pull back the curtain on my nutrition and have a much better understanding of, oh, I didn't realize that was so high in fat, or that was so high in carbs, or this had no protein or a lot of protein. Like it's been really eye-opening me to learn a lot of this stuff, but it's going to help me get to my weight loss goal or just my fitness goal in general so much quicker because I have a better understanding of it. So think about that too in our business. Are you actually pulling back the curtain and seeing what's happening backstage to really understand what it takes to put that performance on that you see in front of the stage? And so the app that we're using is called MyFitnessPal. It's been really cool to see every meal I eat, I'm putting it in there. I have all my goals in there. It's got the little, circles, just like you have like on a Apple Watch. So you could see how close you are to closing your circles. Like right now, I know I'm super short of my protein number today. But that tells me gives me good guidance of what I need to do tonight to make sure that I close all those circles before the day's over. So I think it's really applicable for my nutrition, but it's also something that's in your general business that we should be tracking and measuring that stuff.
You get to gamify your weight loss, which is your favorite thing.
Yeah.
Mine, I have 3 written down and I don't love either of them, but this one's my favorite. And I think this is actually really applicable. If you're a Google Sheets fan, like I am, like we are at this team, you can put so many, right? In Google Sheets, it's like Excel, right? And so it's the free version. One thing that I learned this year, and as I'm saying this, I realized I already talked about this probably last week, I don't know. But what you can do is you can actually create a really easy filter. So for example, say in column A, you have your agent's name and it shows up every time they show up to a Tuesday meeting, whatever. Well, you could do Control F and then type in Adrian and see how many times he shows up and that sort of thing. But what you can do, a better way is you can actually click if you're looking at the sheet, the very top left, it's not even the cell, it's the header in the top left, and you can create a filter. And what it'll do is you can say, hey, in column A, I want to see only Adrian's name, and you can see all of the columns. So if you're looking for all of his sales, you're exporting things from Sisu, and you want to see all the commissions earned from this lead source, you can go into it a billion different ways. But really, if you want to look into it and you go, oh, I use Google Sheets or I use Excel a lot and you don't know filters, Google how to use it. But it really changed how I use filters. And I went from hating Google Sheets and saying Monday's the only way to go to now being able to use them both interchangeably.
Yeah, it's a huge level up from just the normal sort feature, which most of us probably are accustomed to using, to filter and just see one, in that case, one agent's data is wildly beneficial.
Yep.
Awesome, guys. Well, really appreciate you tuning in to this episode of the Whistle Way podcast. Again, I'm Kyle Whistle with eXp Realty here in San Diego.
I'm Bryan Kochi.
We'll see you next time.
I need my intro.